So the infamous question is going on and around the industry. Can comics be saved? And of course, there's quite a few notable retailers who are pitching in on their thoughts. And I decided, you know what, I want to talk about Mr. Mile High Comics himself, Chuck Rosanski, because Chuck has had Mile High Comics for a long time. I remember ordering from Mile High like 20 years ago, maybe like 25 or even maybe even 30 years ago while I was a little kid. That was probably the first place I ever ordered long distance before online was a thing when I looked through the catalogs. So Chuck Rosanski, he has some very interesting thoughts, and I feel like we need to get in on this, and I will pretty much chime in my opinion after every paragraph or two. So let's get into the thick of it.
As I suspected, 32 flavors.
All right, now here we go. After 53 years in the comics business, I feel that I have a pretty good handle on the evolution of the direct market. Sadly, what I am witnessing today is an inexorable disintegration of the highly efficient, non-returnable comic book distribution system that I helped to create so many wonderful decades ago. I mean, yeah, it is definitely a problem. Didn't help that for a while there's only one distributor, Diamond, so they had a whole monopoly on the situation. They could basically like screw your comics up, and it was just like, okay, well they answer to no one, and so it's you either wait for them fixed copies or you just deal with it. So that's one thing, but that's one of like 800 other things. Anyways, let's go on. In some regards, I believe that this trend of declining periodical comic books interest is irreversible, merely reflecting the slow death of our core constituency from the ravages of time. As secondary market reseller, I cannot begin to relate just how many large collections of prior periodical releases that have been offered over the past few years from either the widows and orphans of lifelong comics fans or from those aging fans themselves as they come to the bitter realization that their days of indulging their four-color passions have finally come to an end. To be specific, I have personally turned down offers to purchase back issues collections that exceeded 1 million individual issues during each of the past 3 years. Given that we are at most 1% of the national market for back issues, that statistic alone should provide significant insight into the current and ongoing comic book malaise. Okay, I don't doubt that what he's saying is wrong. I think there could even be 100% truth to it. However, just because those people die doesn't mean that that translates to everyone who is in that demographic. Especially, I'm 36. I was born in 1987. I'm going to be 40 in 4 years. And there's a lot of guys between my age, 35, 36 through 60, 65 even. So you're talking 45, 55, 20, 25, maybe even for some 30 years. There's still quite a bit of them living out there. So just because those ones died off, and yeah, that's unfortunate. It sucks that their collections were given off, but there's still people in that age gap who are willing to buy. I go shop at one of the biggest shops in the state of Illinois, and there's a good market of guys around my age, and if not older, and they are consistent. They're loyal. They're friendly. I've hung out with some of these guys on a personal basis. And I have a good feeling that that shop is a good indicator of what other shops are like. And we're not even in a shop that's in Chicago, the one that I shop at. So I'm just saying those type of people do buy the comic books. So while there are people who do pass away at those ages, unfortunately, guess what? There's still people who are buying at that age demographic. Now carry on. The obvious solution to this aging out dilemma is that we need to have a new generation of readers, collectors to emerge. In my opinion, however, that is highly unlikely to occur. The economics of this inexorable decline are relatively simple to understand. As our baby boomer generation steadily leaves us and our replacement population of new collectors is much smaller, print runs are in steady decline. For the creation of comics to then make economic sense for the publishers, cover prices must rise. With each cover price increase, however, another stratum of potential new customers are priced out of the new comics market. That being the case, I see no rational conclusion but to believe that the direct market periodical business is in a death spiral right now, one for which I see no obvious remedy. Now, he is not wrong in the sense that the market for Marvel, DC in particular, is much smaller. However, there is a generation in the younger age gap that are reading comic books. They are reading manga and lots of it. Go to any Barnes and Noble. Just look at the online data. Look at the top collections for trades. Chuck, you could see that they are buying manga. Outside of manga, whether it's like a One Piece or My Hero Academia, I'm just lifting off like manga titles. I don't even know if factually these are the biggest titles, but I'm just giving you like there's a lot of titles out there that are big. Demon Slayer, a lot of these titles are huge in the manga market, and they're selling, and they take up the majority of what's selling domestically here in the United States. And outside of that, you have the Dogmans. You even have, even to a lesser extent, the Diary of a Wimpy Kids of the world, Cat Kid Comic Club. So there is an interest to buy this type of comic book format. There is an interest. It's just not in the market that you had all the Marvels and DCs of the world say, hey, you know what? We need to make better books and find a way to make this accessible to new readers. Doesn't help that they decided to stay strictly to comic book shops only, because you took them out of the Walgreens, the 7-Elevens of the world, the newspaper stands, and you made them so exclusive to that comic book shop. And that sounds like that may be better for the comic book shop. However, that doesn't bring a reader who goes in, but hey, I really like the Spider-Man comic. What other characters are in Marvel that might be of my particular interest? Oh, hey, She-Hulk? Oh, I guess I gotta go to a comic book shop to seek out She-Hulk. Okay, I gotta do that. There's no doorway that leads to that. Instead, you just made everything to that shop. You could have at least had your top 2, 3 biggest characters, but you took them all out completely rather than have a select few be part of the mainstream areas where people go to every single day to get their access to print media. And yes, print media is always going to be around. Digital is not going to replace it, no matter how much it really wants to. So he's not wrong in that regards, but that was the industry's fault. That was your industry's fault. A lot of them resort to that method of having bad books. On top of it, expensive books, countless events that mean nothing, and then adding no meaning to those events, and then having it all undone. Thank you, Axel Alonso, for doing the seasonal model. I could go on for a list of bullshit all day on what happened, but isn't it a death spiral? But there are solutions. Let's carry on. As regards the survival of our beloved network of direct market comic shops, a great deal depends upon the willingness of retailers to embrace other genres. Original graphic novel releases are certainly one means of satisfying the hunger of those who still truly love graphic storytelling, and maintaining a large backlist of classic past graphic novels and trade paperback releases is also clearly critical. I have even heard that some savvy retailers who are adding board gaming into their product mix with considerable success. Hey, whatever works. At the same time, however, I fervently believe that retailers who have fallen into the trap of only stocking those comics related products which are offered by Diamond Comic Distributors, Lunar Distribution, and Penguin Random House need to quickly begin to diversify their stock product lines of reading material. Young adult publications and popular manga lines are obvious additions, but for us that was only the beginning. Yeah, they do have to expand, and it didn't have to come to that point. It shouldn't even have to come to that point. There could have been other things, maybe a little stand for like a soft drink or something, maybe a couch for some readers to sit down, interact, be humans, have social conversations, or people, hey, what are you reading? They could have had, but you guys made these shops do this, where they had to rely either on Funko Pops or a whole wave of our action figures. Yes, some shops have always had these things, but the comics are the primary focus. Now a lot of these things, whether it's the board gaming or the Funkos or the mangas, they're taking up the shops, where a lot of the stores, their new release sections are getting smaller, much to your industry's doing, sir. To explain, capitalizing on the overabundance of high quality back issues that are currently flooding the market, one of our biggest revenue gains during this past year in our Jason St. Megastore was adding a row of bins filled with access high quality back issues that we premium price at $3.95 each, 6 for $20, 20 for 50. Those higher price points absolutely require that those closeout bins be filled with desirable issues as opposed to typical $1 bin crapola. I agree, actually, but the payoff can be immediate and also quite rewarding. I ran the numbers after the end of our first year, and was delighted to discover that we grossed well over $50,000 from those newly stocked closeout bins during just our initial foray. Fans love them, especially since we vigorously cull them once a month, repackaging less desirable issues into bulk boxes at $36, $39.95. Those bargain bulk boxes are selling really well for us too. Well, that's good. Sounds like he at least has a better sense of how to run business with comics better than most. So I will give Mr. Rosanski that credit in that regard because, yes, there are a lot of shops who have comics that are sitting there, whether it's the 900th volume of Captain Marvel or any of the DC whatever is the current new crop of Future State, Frontier, whatever. I don't even know what the names are called now. They've changed so much since Rebirth. And yeah, I believe that. And there's probably even certain books from New 52, even, like, especially like after a lot of the original writers got, yeah. And then even with the image boom, too, you probably have people who are sitting on certain number ones because they thought it was going to put their kids through college. And it was like, nah, bro. Didn't happen, man. Didn't happen. So, yeah. I do agree with that's not there. But once again, that could have been prevented. That could have been prevented because a lot of the retailers didn't go against what Marvel and DC were doing, and the few that actually did either got frowned upon, or on top of getting frowned upon, they couldn't get a hold of Marvel and DC, especially after like the later days of Axel Alonso, and definitely now going on with like the CB Cebulskis of the world and currently Jim Lee. It's clear that the communication between Marvel and DC to the retailers is minimal to none nowadays. Minimal to none. So even if you want to get a hold of them, you can't. So that's a big problem there. Anyways, let's get to the near end of this here. Expanding upon this diversification thought, I've been beating the drum for nearly a decade now, passionately imploring my fellow comics retailers to stop thinking of themselves as primarily periodical outlets and to instead think of themselves as pop culture resellers. Well, at that point, it's not a comic shop anymore. You might as well just change the name if that's the case. I know I'm butting in during the middle of a paragraph, but for real, that's what it is. By morphing into an enterprise that provides our entire local community of fans with a means/mechanism to convert the individual passions back into cash, direct market retailers can greatly enhance their potential consumer base, while simultaneously freeing themselves from the involuntary servitude forced upon them through the crushing weekly misery of having to cover their distributor bills. I can speak with significant authority in that regard, as over a decade ago. I owe Diamond nearly $1 million in back debt, while I now owe them nothing. Escaping the distributor debt trap is hard, and oftentimes the learning curve while trying to extricate oneself is quite painful, but I am proof positive that it can be done. Well, I do admire that you got that done, and that's freaking awesome, man. It shouldn't have to come to that. It shouldn't have to come to that. We need to rethink how we sell these things because having readers escape and then you hike up the price to make up for the readers that left is not a winning model for any type of business ever. You either take the loss and try to find new ways to win those readers back, or you just don't operate this business, which I would hate to see, but at this point, you're going to only slow down the inevitable death. I would say for, no, my friends, fans, it's weird to say that, but we'll just say friends, because you're all friends of mine if you're subscribed to this channel. Buy back issues, buy them, and if you gotta buy extras, buy them to give to friends. Seek out trade paperbacks too, and if there's a current new comic that you're interested, try to do your best to talk about it. Like right now, I love Conan the Barbarian from Titan Comics. I think it's fantastic. I do love Phantom Road at Image Comics from Jeff Lemire and Gabe Walta. I think that's a great comic as well. So, and I'm looking forward to more of the Energon universe from Robert Kirkman. Firepower is wrapping up. I enjoyed that. I'm enjoying Transformers from DWJ. Looking forward to Duke when that comes out. So there is a market for some books, but the rest I'm not feeling it, especially after what they do to characters like Spider-Man and Daredevil for the 800th time. You get tired of it. You just get really damn tired of it. But yes, he's right. This stuff can be done, and these retailers do need to think outside of the box. But let's bring it home. I will conclude today's observations on an intentionally upbeat note. While the overall U.S. economy has been buffeted by all kinds of economic headwinds this year and conditions faced by direct market retailers have been especially fraught, I actually see many positive omens for the future. To be specific, the current generation of direct market retailers leave me in awe at their adaptability in the face of rapidly shifting consumer demand. Yes, it is highly likely that we are approaching the end days of our beloved periodic comic books, but as I see it, that merely opens the door for all kinds of reinventions and innovations. Well, on top of that, Chuck, why not cater to the next audience who are buying manga, make high quality stories like those, but also still keep the aging demographic in mind of between 35 and 65, because guess what? They buy stuff too. You can have them both. You're not going to have every single one in the room, but that's fine. But you can have it both ways to a point with that. So it doesn't have to be exclusively the young audience. Yes, you want to have them because they pass from generation to generations. But we should still have these books be a thing. You just got to find an accessible means of getting to them. And that's going to take something that your retailers are going to have to admit a lot of what they've been doing is not working if they have the humility in them to admit that. All right, as regards to our own diversification efforts here at Mile High Comics, changes in our focus have resulted in 2023 currently being on track to be our highest grossing and most profitable year ever in our adjacent same megastore's history. That having been said, while I truly do love new comic books, living without them in the relatively near future now seems so both inevitable to me and also quite doable. Well, you're okay with that. You're well off financially. You aren't as burned by these, and obviously, to your credit, you adapted. So others, however, didn't adapt or also didn't complain when they were in the right to complain and chose not to. We shouldn't have to just accept that, because when you just accept inevitability, you just accept for anything else to just die out. You can make things survive, but you have to actually commit to it rather than just accept and just let it fall flat on its ass. But I digress. Times change, and like it or not, we have no choice but to adapt to whatever new realities evolve if we wish our enterprises to survive. Above all else, I want to wish all my fellow comics retailers the very best and good fortune during the challenging days to come. I have great faith in you and also in our shared futures. I will give him credit for ending that on a positive note. I do wish he was not so black-pilled on just letting comic books just end so loosely and almost uncaringly. It's like, yeah, dude, I know you're doing great, and I do credit you for turning your business around, but it doesn't have to be like this. It really does not. You can do something to say, hey, what can we do to turn this around while still adapting? It doesn't have to be one thing or another. I hate this. We have to apply this one size fits all model to things. And I know it's not what he literally said, but it's clear that all these guys are just saying we gotta have one way of having a standard. We don't need the industry standard. We gotta say, hey, what works best for your company, for your store, for your publisher. These need to be all approached individually rather than apply a one size fits all approach. And that's something a lot of us need to accept too, because we've been trained and, dare I say, programmed and engineered in the last 10, 15, 20 years into this is how we do things. No, we don't have to do these. We should take these into consideration, maybe give some thought, but there should be more than one way to things. But anyways, what are your thoughts on what Mr. Rosanski has to say? Do you think he's full shit? Do you think he's right on some things, wrong on others? Do you think he's completely in the right? I'm kind of I'm mixed with some of the things he said. Well, I am happy that he recovered his debt. I do feel like he's a little bit doom laden filled on some things. But that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. And I'll see you all in the next video. And you lay down your souls to the gods rock and roll.
You can feel it, dude! You can feel it!